Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And I'm not even going to waste your time today, jibber jabbering and talking smack. We're going to just get right into the story that you all want to hear. Today's episode is very important. It's about standing up for what you believe in, being a role model to those that are coming after us, not coming after us as in they hate us, the generation behind us. Oh God, I'm jibber jabbering already. You know what I mean. Being a role model. And this episode is also about visibility. I am joined by a very special guest, SJ Joslin, who you may recognize. You may have heard the name. They made headlines all across the nation, if not across the globe. SJ was the reason that that trans flag was flown in Yosemite Park a few months ago. And they were also fired for flying that flag in the park. We're going to get into their experience as a non binary ranger and how they came to understand themselves as non binary, because I think that is very important and integral to the story. We're going to talk about that day that changed the trajectory of SJ's life. And we'll talk about what they are doing now, how they're feeling, how they're dealing with losing the job of their dreams, but also pushing forward and continuing to fight for their right to just be. And you know what to do. Wherever you're listening, on whatever podcast app, make sure you are subscribed so you get notified when I put out new episodes, which is every Tuesday and every Friday. Make sure you're following on Instagram at _hotairpod so you can see little clips of upcoming episodes and behind the scenes stuff. That's enough of me. Let's get into why we're here. Let's sit down, let's talk to SJ and see what's up. Let's hit it. No, I've been not like closely following as much as I could. And then, I mean, we may as well start the episode. When I saw that you had flown I didn't know it was you at the time, but that
Right.
the trans flag was flying, I was just like, that's so cool. And I just like felt really good and positive about it, which I imagine was something that you had hoped for, that people would have a good reaction to seeing that. And then, as the months progressed, and we'll get into your story and your experience and the unfortunate side of things. Me and a bunch of people were just so pissed and so irritated and like so frustrated that that type of reaction, and you had to experience that outcome. I'm trying to be a little bit like secretive. I'm like, I don't want to give away your whole your whole story right at the top, but I've been following along, as much as I could. And then randomly, I was scrolling through something on Instagram, and your account popped up, and it was some interview you were doing. You were just sitting talking, and like I just like felt for you. I think that was the day that I messaged you, because I like, you just seem so kind, and so you actually remind me a little bit of my stepsister, who is very very much one with nature and loves camping and exploring, and she does all of these solo trips in the wilderness. And maybe that's why I was like, okay, I need to talk to her, or I need to talk to them and discuss things and learn more about your experience. So with that being said, welcome to Hot Air. I'm here with
Thanks.
SJ. Thank you for being so willing to come connect with me and talk with me. And before we get into why your name was in the headlines and how I found you, I want to know more about you as an individual. So, do you want to give me, a little bit of a download on who you are, where you're from, about your life, your hobbies, all the fun things about SJ?
Yeah, totally. My name's SJ Joslin, and I'm originally from Sacramento, California. And I am a scientist and I'm a climber. I did my undergrad and my PhD at UC Davis, which is in Northern California. And I've always studied animals and wildlife, and I've always been like a staunch advocate for animals in my life. When I was younger, it was domesticated animals. I wanted to be a vet, and then I realized that I'm an introvert and I don't really like talking with people, believe it or not. And And so I realized that you could help animals by doing science. And so I've just kind of dedicated my professional career to helping animals and promoting biodiversity since then, and just kind of like learning about, um, various avenues for kind of inching biodiversity forward. And so that kind of brought me to getting my PhD. And I was a pretty like avid rock climber. And UC Davis is really close to Yosemite, and I would go to Yosemite to rock climb all of the time. And I fell in love with Yosemite so entirely that I have dedicated basically everything in my life to being there. I write guidebooks for climbing in Yosemite. All of my community is there. It's where I spend all of my free time. It's where I go to church, if you will. I have healed myself in many ways, both physically and mentally, just by going there. And so it's the community that I want to contribute to the most. And so when I was in grad school, a position came along, basically looking into bats and wildlife data in the park. And so I applied to the position, just being like, oh, I'm just going to get my name out there. And I ended up getting the position. So in 2021, I ended up moving to Yosemite and starting to work for the NPS. And that just kind of like was my dream come true, because
Wow.
the work that, yeah, yeah. And the work that I do in the park merges both science and climbing. It's like this really great work where we get to study bats along cliffs. And I was like, developing a program for like developing methods to study bats along cliffs. And so we use all of our like climbing skills to study these animals that, can fly somewhere that takes 3 minutes and it'll take us 3 days to get there. But
Hmm. That's
yeah,
such a specific niche, isn't it?
it's
When I was like reading
very
bats,
specific.
I'm like, that's so specific, and the climbing and yeah. But just you explaining that, like you can tell how much you actually give a shit and how much you care. And I think that's so cool that you got your dream job just being like, oh, I'll just, so they know my name and there you are. Wow.
Yeah, I when I came to Yosemite, I hadn't seen a photo of Yosemite Valley, and I arrived in the middle of the night, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird. There aren't stars lower in the sky. Why not?" And then I woke up the next day and I was surrounded by like thousands of feet monoliths, and I was just my mouth was just like the whole day. I was just like in awe. So I've
I
just loved
love
it
that.
ever since. Yeah.
And what was it like living and working there? What are those, just out of my own curiosity?
Living and working there is it's both really rewarding and also very hard because you are in rural America. So certain accommodations are pretty hard to find. Like good medical care and like access to medical resources is really hard, especially if you have like pre-existing conditions and need consistent medical treatment. That's incredibly hard. The closest grocery store that we have to us is 45 minutes away, so
Okay.
uh, that's also difficult. But the beautiful aspects of it are you get to work in a place that you care about so deeply that it's your whole world, and you get to like exist in a community that also values this resource. And so, you really end up not only having this job and really caring about the work that you do, but it becoming your whole life and your whole lifestyle. So it's almost like it's just a loved one that you get to care for.
Wow. So like you can't just run to the store if you want a snack, is what you're saying.
Not re- We have a gas station.
Oh, good. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You gotta get gas. Okay, well, at least you have a snack nearby. That was my first
Yeah.
thought. I'm like, oh, I'm getting a snack later, and 7-Eleven is across the road. So I get the munchies, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
digress.
there's a small gas or a small grocery store within Yosemite Valley, but it's really pricey. So
Right. Okay, so you identify as non-binary and you use they them pronouns, which I've already misgendered you in this episode in the first 7 minutes, because even though I'm part of the queer community, I still have things to learn and pay attention to. So I apologize for that if it does happen again, but I will do my best to correct myself. I haven't had a non-binary guest on or a trans guest on, which I've been working on. And so whenever I try to, people will ask me like, how do I interact with people that go by they them or are transitioning, or any spectrum of the many pronouns that we can choose, and people are really confused by they them, and they get scared if they misgender, and instead of just being like, oops, made a mistake, talking it through. So I'm curious what that looks like for you, they, them, what it was like when you were like, oh, I'm non-binary. This makes sense. Like, how was there a moment where it clicked, and how do you experience being non-binary in just your daily life?
Yeah, that's a great question.
17 questions.
Yeah. Um, I think that the place that I can start with this is I grew up in a pretty conservative suburb of Sacramento. And so there weren't any, I too never saw a they them until fairly recently. And so the way that I discovered that I was they them, it was really similar to the way that I discovered that I was gay, which is enough people noticed and just started commenting on it that I was like, huh, maybe I am. Like I do resonate with like men in a lot of ways, but like women in a lot of ways. So like where does that position me? And like the obvious, like I was a tomboy growing up, but you know, it's it's difficult because as like a non-binary person, like I have long hair and I'm not trying to like yes, I take testosterone, but like I'm not trying to like make myself look any like real degrees different than I actually look. But I think that, you know, just knowing that like you don't have to look a particular way to be a they them is like what's really it like made a lot of like I don't know, it just kind of clicked when I was like, oh, I don't have to change anything of like who I am physically in order to like acknowledge who I am internally. And I think that that's a lot of what people don't understand is even if you're born male and you're female, it and you never transition in your life, you will still be female. It doesn't matter what you do. It's what
Hmm.
is inside of you. And I read this book called We Are Our Brains, and it goes into basically talking about like the different parts of brains that are like associated with sex. And like essentially there's this like working hypothesis that if you have particular parts that are of either sex, then you could be non-binary. And I'm like, oh my god, that makes so much sense that like I really identify as like, you know, a woman in these categories and I really identify as like a man in these categories, but like where does that leave me?
Right.
And I think like as far as people, you know, misgendering anyone, I think that the best thing that you can do is just correct yourself and continue moving on. I don't want anyone focusing on me. I don't really want people to like, you just want to be another person
Right.
and that's it. And so, yes, there is the like, oh, it's so hard for me to like say they when it's like a single person. And I get that all the time. And then I'm like, well, like, what would you do if someone was talking about an Alex? Alex is both used as a man name and a woman name. Would you
Hmm.
not say, like, oh, what are they doing today? Or like, you know, you would just like, you would refer to them as they until you knew. And so that's kind of like the little like niche that people who are non
Okay.
binary have taken up.
I think it's also just one of those things that's kind of challenging to put into words. Just like explaining, like, oh, I'm gay. Like, I can't really explain why, because it just is. And that's one category that I fit into. And it's just like I'll never understand somebody fully who is completely straight, because I don't know what it's like to be
Yeah.
completely straight. It's one of those things where I just tell people, just even if you don't get it or you don't understand, regardless of how you identify, you just kind of go, okay, well, that is up to them. That's what feels true to them and feels like them being their truest self. So I think it can be challenging to like really put into words to explain to somebody. But so when people started
Totally. Totally.
pointing that out to you, that you may be non-binary, or acknowledging it, was there a specific moment where you were like, okay, like that's correct, that's how I feel, that's how I identify? Or was it just accumulation of all the different experiences?
It was it was an accumulation that kind of led up to the general acceptance because I felt so supported by my community. Coming from a place where if you're gay, you're picked on, and you know, being called gay is the way that people will say that you're, you know, stupid or an outcast.
Mhm.
I think that I kind of turned a blind eye to a lot of like what I felt inside. And then living in Yosemite allowed me to be around people who are just flat out accepting of people in like whatever form they come. And so it was through like talks with my community there. And then a bunch of people being like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry I misgendered you." And they were like, I'll use they them now." And I was like, "Oh, you don't you don't have to." And then I was like, "Actually, maybe that is true."
Hmm.
And it wasn't something that I really talked with my family about until the Trump administration got put into place, because then it became a lot more relevant
Yeah.
because Trump is actively persecuting trans people. And
Hmm.
if you're not cis, you're trans, and
Right.
non binary people are trans.
Has being non-binary, maybe it has or hasn't, has it shaped your approach to your work as a ranger and wildlife biologist, your connection to Yosemite? Do you feel like that has an impact on how you navigate working in the park?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think people want explicit categories for things, and being non binary kind of implicitly creates a spectrum of gender, right? And
Hmm.
so as a scientist, you also kind of want things like pretty cleanly set, right? Like you're like, okay, this is, I reject my null hypothesis or I accept it. But it has allowed me to kind of like really acknowledge that there's just like a diversity in so many realms. And even if we're seeing categorical data or placing things into boxes, that maybe we're just not fully understanding what that thing is that we're placing into a box.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of allowed myself to think about things more outside of like a human perspective,
Right.
like we're discovering like all of these advances to humans that animals have been doing for millions of years. And it's super novel and super interesting to us, but we've just opened our minds to, learning more.
Hmm. Good question. Good answer. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's just about being
Thanks.
open, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Shall we get into all of the headlines?
Yeah.
And I do have my questions, but I want to let you explain what happened. Yeah, just take it away. Why are we here?
Yeah, so we're here because on May 20th, earlier this year, I hung a 66 by 35-foot flag at the base of a feature on El Capitan called the Heart Feature. And I hung it for 2 hours when I was in my off time. And then 3 months later, I was fired for hanging that flag on El Capitan.
And then what? And now you're here.
And and now I'm here. I'm a
Yes.
fired ranger.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's, as I said in my first message to you, bullshit. Did anybody else that was climbing with you have any repercussions?
There were two other Park Service employees. They both are on paid investigatory administrative leave, which is just government jargon for paid leave, while the government determines what kind of disciplinary action they'll maybe take against them.
Right. And so, do you know why you were let go and they were not?
There two potential avenues. One that is the easiest for the government to fall back on is that I was technically still a probationary employee. And what that means is I was still on a trial period because had been hired within 2 years to the current position I was in. So
Hmm.
even though I had been doing the exact same work for 4 years in the park, I got a promotion just under 2 years ago. And so I was put on probation, which is just a trial period.
Okay.
Um, yeah. The other avenue, and those other two employees are tenured employees, so that means that they're no longer on probation.
Right.
But the other avenue that might be relevant is I am both trans and gay, and the other two employees are straight and male.
And you're an easy person to just use as an example, essentially,
Yeah,
is what I take from that.
absolutely.
When when you decided to fly the trans flag, what did you hope that it was going to accomplish or say to the public?
Yeah. So when I decided to fly the trans flag, or when I came up with the idea, I was really hurting because the Trump administration had been issuing out all of these like anti-trans pieces of legislation and like targeting trans people. This was in March, and it just felt like we needed some kind of win. And I was like, you know what, I don't want to let this orange man like dictate anything in my life, so I want to celebrate transness. I want to celebrate that like we are welcome outdoors, and like we are accepted, and that we deserve to exist. And so the whole like point of the flag was to celebrate identity. And the whole reason that we put it where we put it was because it's in this like naturally formed heart feature on this like iconic massive monolith
Hmm.
in the middle of Yosemite Valley. And so it's like we're in the heart of Yosemite Valley. We're on this place called the Heart Ledges, and we're flying this flag that just promotes acceptance. It's like it's just a flag of acceptance. It
Right.
doesn't discriminate against anyone. It's just doing something that contributes to love. And
When you did this, it was like you said, it was during your off time.
mhm.
Did Was there a distinction between your personal expression and like your professional role at the moment? Did you foresee this being an issue at all?
Oh, I 100% kept my personal and my professional lives separate. I was very intentional about that. Not only like in regards to flying the flag, but even before flying the flag, like you never see any piece of like I am a ranger on my Instagram account, for example. And I don't take in any kind of like, you know, certain beliefs when I go to do my job, because my job is to take care of the park. And like
Hmm.
that's not a political thing, right? Like I am there to help promote diversity and sometimes help with like facility things around the park, so that people can come and have that same sense of awe that I did when I first came to the park. And that's all that I want for people. I don't care about their political beliefs. I just want them to like see this 1,000-foot waterfall and just be gobsmacked because
Right.
they've never seen that before and they've wanted to see it their whole life. And when I was flying the flag, I did the exact same thing. Like I made sure that everything that I did regarding the flag was in my off time, all of the planning for it, all of the equipment, everything. And whenever an interview would, or a interviewer would interview me, I made sure to like just say that I'm a conservation biologist that studies bats in Yosemite.
Hmm.
And I was very explicit to like not have any part of the NPS be affiliated with what I was doing.
So you had covered your bases
Yeah.
in preparation.
Yeah, and I thought that I would be fine because El Capitan has always been a place where people have been able to practice their First Amendment right. There have been
Right.
flags that have been hung on it as long as people have been on El Cap. So like a few years ago, before like all of the flags started getting attention, there was a banner that said war should be on climate change, and that was during this first Trump administration. And then, people take up small flags all of the time. I can't even keep track of the ones like
Hmm.
pirate flags. One said "Happy Birthday, Mom," like pride flags, trans
Right.
flags, all of them, American flags, anyone. And then this last year, there were two flags that were actually political statements that don't just express identity. They actually were saying something like, "I have this belief, and you can believe it or you cannot believe it."
Hmm.
And employees were associated with both of those flag hangings, and there were no repercussions. So I never in a million years thought that I would be fired for this,
Right. Yeah, I
because there
read
was no precedent. Yeah.
the other flag that were flown. Do you know what they were?
Yeah.
Those two other ones?
Yeah, in 2024 there was a flag that said "Stop the Genocide"
Uh-huh.
in relation to Palestine. And then the flag that was flown earlier this year was an upside down American flag.
And those were done by people that worked in the park,
Yeah,
and there was no
at
issue with that.
least people who worked in the park were affiliated with, or
Okay.
it completely happened because of employees in the park.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were no repercussions.
I see. So, flag aside, have you ever experienced anything like this while working in the park? Anything that made you feel other than or directly, I guess, attacked or focused upon unnecessarily?
Not me specifically in the park. I would say that like the LGBT population in the NPS felt not a similar attack, but an attack last year with not being able to wear uniforms during Pride.
Hmm.
Because we had there was an initiative in the last administration to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and so we had been able to wear uniforms during Pride, all of the prides before, and that was taken away from us for no explicit reason.
Okay. I didn't know that. And that was in Trump's first term or recently?
No, that was leading up to the election.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
almost even worse. Um,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that. That is
Yeah.
helpful to know.
It's pretty terrible.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but your termination letter cited that you were failing to demonstrate acceptable conduct and characterized the act as an unauthorized demonstration. How do you feel about that characterization?
That is correct. And I think it's explicitly targeted at a population of people that this administration has targeted throughout the entirety of their tenure controlling this country.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, the upside down American flag was hung when Trump was in office. There was no investigation, there was no ramifications. And so, why was our flag targeted?
Right.
Yeah, and it wasn't called a demonstration, even though that flag was hung directly next to something that millions of people are that know about and want to see and will look at pictures for, and it was during, like, the most high visibility time. That wasn't a demonstration, but me hanging a flag on a Tuesday morning for 2 hours was a demonstration.
Right.
I I don't know how those are separate and how those are different.
When you were choosing to fly the flag, did you consider this type of protest, or was it just a personal declaration?
I didn't consider it a protest. I also didn't consider it a demonstration. I just considered it a celebration of identity. There
Yeah.
weren't any rules in place at the time that limit the size of flags on LCAP, and I've flown flags like that are 3 by 5 before, and just like basically everyone else, yeah, there was no size limit. So they made a size limit the next day
Right.
and tried to backdate it. Why would they do that? Why would they have to create that rule if any large flag just automatically counted as a demonstration? It was something that they didn't want.
So yeah, let's say that again, because the day after, like you said, they ban banners, flags that were over 15 feet, right, in wilderness areas, which I imagine wilderness areas is the entire park because it is the wilderness. And then you were fired. Was it August 12th?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was just shy of completing your 2-year probation.
Yep.
And
Correct.
so when you say they tried to backdate it, they tried to make it look as though this new ban was dated prior to when you flew the flag.
Yeah. They tried to make it look like it was dated for the day that we hung the flag.
Oh, well,
So
that's
presumably,
convenient.
yeah. But the digital signature stated otherwise. So you can actually go and look at the superintendent's compendium right now, and it's still on there.
Okay.
That is exactly right. We flew the flag on May 20th. On May 21st, a rule came out saying that no flag over 15 square feet can be flown in a wilderness area, which is like I think it's over 92 or 94% of the park. But that wasn't the explicit reason that they gave for firing me. It was the demonstration component.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but presumably, if they wouldn't have been caught, I don't know what would have happened because
Right.
I did get fired so far into the future that there was a whole investigation that happened, between May 20th and August 12th.
And during that gap, that several months, did you think that everything was going to be okay, that everything was fine? Did you have an idea that this was kind of coming?
I knew that there was an investigation. I got called in for a criminal investigation about a week after I flew the flag, which I declined to be interviewed because you don't have to be interviewed in criminal investigations, and if you don't have a lawyer present, they're like elective. But then I got called back for an administrative interview, and that
Hmm.
one, if you're a federal employee, have you have to do the administrative interview. So I knew that there was an investigation that was going on. I thought that it was just like they were like running through the hoops, like, okay, yeah, we'll investigate this. Yep, flags are flown on LCAP. Okay, there's a rule that says that they can't be flown anymore. But then I didn't think that I was going to be fired until my supervisor told me that I needed to come to the deputy superintendent's office and have a
Hmm.
meeting with her.
I'm stressed out. The National Park Service cited resource protection and visitor safety in justifying this new ban on the size of flags or banners. Does that make sense to you? Does that rationale hold up, or do you see it as something else? Or
I
just
see it
another
as something.
excuse, right?
Yeah, I think it's just another excuse. I think that that's them just like doing the same thing that the Trump administration always does, which is just like throw out words that people would be like, "Yeah, I'm on board with that." But like,
Yeah.
what did we do when we hung the flag? We didn't affect any resources. There were people who were climbing who could climb, and like climbing wasn't obstructed. It was up for 2 hours on a day that we know that there aren't a lot of people who come into the park, and like we used all temporary equipment. And so, like, if the flag is posing a threat to visitors, then climbing is posing a threat because we just used all of the climbing equipment. So, like, how is that different? No one touched the flag except for us. No
Hmm.
one could even try to touch the flag because it was like 30 feet above our heads, and it was like 20 feet out from the wall. So, like, no one who's gonna get hurt. And we know that there aren't wildlife in the cracks that we were like affixing cams to, temporary cams, because we like surveyed the inside. And so like we know how to like look for if we're disturbing anything. And if we're disturbing something, we wouldn't have flown the flag.
Hmm.
If there was a rule against it, we wouldn't have flown the flag, but like there wasn't. And there
Right.
was
Now, random, where did you get a flag that big?
got it from San Diego Pride flags.
Oh, sweet. There we go.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we were in on it.
you totally were. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. San
And how
Diego was
long did
perfect.
it take you to get it strung up?
Not that long. It probably let's see. It probably took us, including hauling the gear up, because we had to haul up the gear about 800 feet, 6 hours.
Oh, you said not that long. That's a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not that long in like in like big walling
Yeah, I wouldn't
areas,
know.
Yeah.
Wow, that
Um,
is commitment. Sheesh.
and then it flew for 2, and we took it down within an hour.
Did you take it down because you were like, "Oh, time's up, like, that's all we were gonna do?" Why did you take it down only after 2 hours? Why not longer?
It didn't need to be flown for longer. We knew that we were gonna get pictures of it, and we didn't need it to be up all day.
Right.
We weren't trying to, like, inconvenience anyone. We just wanted to do something where, like, we could have these beautiful images, which
Yeah.
I can send you
Yeah,
some.
please do. I think that says a
Yeah,
lot. You're like, "This doesn't have to stay up there forever." Like, you did what you wanted to do. You got your content, your pictures, so you sent the message and then take it down. Like,
yeah,
what's the big flipping deal?
yeah.
So you've expressed that the firing sends the message that if you're a federal worker and you have any kind of identity that does not agree with the current administration, then you must be silent or you'll be eliminated, fired, let go. Can you kind of unpack your thought process behind that?
My thought process behind that is I did everything that I could to separate myself from being an NPS employee. And I've always gotten excellent performance reviews working for the Park Service. My colleagues love me. One person described how they feel right now is that like we all form this like ship, and there's just a hole in the ship and it feels like it's sinking because we're a really tight knit work group and we work in this rural area. And if you take away one person, that person is holding up a lot of weight in these work groups
Mhm.
because we're strapped right now. And so, keeping that in, like, I do a good job in the work that I do because I take a lot of pride in the work that I do. And then, the fact that I did this in my free time and there was historical precedent for it being accepted, what does that what does that leave for why this flag was the one that someone is going to get reprimanded for?
Right.
It's because this administration has turned an identity into an ideology, and they don't like our identity, because I don't know why. It's an easy target for them to assemble people behind because
Mhm.
fear is a great assembler,
Yeah.
and they're making people afraid of trans people.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah, they're just using this example as a way to like further their own completely made up narrative.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, let's move on from that event into current times. Looking forward, what's next? So, you're being represented by advocacy group Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility and
Mhm.
are considering legal action. And I'm sure you can't talk in great detail about that, but what are you hoping to achieve through that route?
Yeah, I'm hoping, like, through consulting with peer and, like, seeking out legal counsel, I'm hoping to be reinstated into my position and to protect people's First Amendment rights as federal workers. I think that it's really important that we still have our rights as private citizens, as private civilians in this country. And right now, that line is really blurred. And so a lot of people are very scared. Like the community is terrified right now.
Right.
We have people in positions that are temporary and they can totally annihilate our community that we've worked so hard to create, that that sense of like acceptance where you can be a person that you never dreamed of because people are just there and accepting you. Yeah, so there's like this silencing of acceptance in a way, because that's dangerous to someone who functions through divisiveness, right? Like this
Hmm.
administration is just like so into dividing, like it's us versus them. And yeah, having something that's accepting is apparently not okay. And
Right.
so it's also, if a federal worker has any kind of like complaint, it's, we'll shut up and take it. We'll get you for something you don't even think about.
Totally. Well, I hope you get reinstated. I think that also says a lot that you're like that's just what I want. I want my job back. Like you want to go do what you're passionate about and also allow for others to do the same and express themselves while working federally or in any gig. So, how are you processing all of this emotionally since I guess August, mid-August?
Well, I've felt like I've lost the love of my life. I think that's the most apt way of describing it. Um, I've just been going through all the stages of grief. The first week, I just lied on the floor and cried a bunch.
Mhm.
And that was largely why I didn't come out and say that I was fired to the public, because I just wasn't ready. I just was mourning the loss of working with my team and, taking care of this place that has ruled my life for the past 20 years. And um, and then I got spurred into action and I was angry and I'm still pretty angry. But I think I'm kind of entering a like weird blank hopeless phase, which is hard to admit,
Mhm.
but there's kind of like the, okay, well, what do I do next? And then you start, and you might do this with a loved one of like, okay, well, like, who do I love next? And then
Right.
you're like comparing everyone to this person who's gone. I'm just comparing every potential career path to this one that I loved and was my dream. And yeah, it just feels like compromises I don't want to make.
That sounds very heavy, but I also have been thinking a lot about your story and how sometimes unintentionally we're thrust into a position in which we begin fighting for other people's rights and we suddenly become an advocate that we never thought we would be. And it makes all the sense in the world that you feel like you're grieving the loss of your love of your life, your dream job. You might be going down a different path, but I think all the speaking out that you've been doing and all the questions you're answering here and on Instagram, and there's a lot of people and a lot of support behind you. So feel your feels. It hasn't even been a month, right? So,
Yeah.
feel what you need to feel and go through the moments. But I think shitty things like this happen to set people up for something that only they are capable of accomplishing. And you've already become a
Totally.
voice for such a large group of people. And so, feel your feels, but maybe keep that in the back of your head that there's a lot of people that are like, get it, like stand up
Yeah.
for what is right and support you from afar or through the computer screen or the internet or,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine how that feels. Obviously, you said that you hope to get reinstated. So how do you, in the meantime, how do you hope to contribute to environmental science or public lands, regardless of what direction this goes in? Or have you
I
thought of
mean,
that even?
a little bit. Yeah. In kind of moving past the like extreme sadness phase and like anger phase, I've been like toying around with things in my head, and I've been feeling such love from everyone in our community, and just like people reaching out and expressing what the flag meant to them initially and what this firing means, and how they're behind me. Like, I've gone to some climbing gyms since I've been fired, and people at the front desk are like, you know, this family of a climbing gym is behind you. Just know that we are behind you. And
Hmm.
I've gotten that from so many people, and it's felt like really invigorating to like keep fighting and keep coming up with different avenues for like continuing in this process and continuing to advocate for people. Like, it doesn't just stop at like my firing. This is like way larger than my firing. And I want to keep exposing those types of things. And
Right.
so, yeah, kind of in the same vein with like environmentalism and like advocating for the outdoors, I do see myself fighting for things that are important to me, which is biodiversity in the outdoors, and like continuing to fight for like preserving landscapes in a
Hmm.
way that is healthy for the landscape. I'm not going to give up that.
Right. Yeah, find your inspiration, where you can to keep pushing forward. But I love that you're still climbing, you're still out there doing things, you're not really shying
Yeah.
away from you
No.
took your moment to shy away and kind of begin your healing process, but you're out there doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
And this what you when you flew that flag, like you said, I think at the very beginning of this episode, it came at such an important time with all these attacks on the trans community. And I don't have a lot of trans friends. I have two, and I look up to them. I think the trans community is the strongest people in the world, in my opinion, what they have to deal with and go through. Like, I think about my own struggles as like a white gay man. Like, in comparison, I'm like, I have it pretty easy. So I can't connect or imagine. I can just respect, my friends and the trans community. So again, I think it's really important what you did. But how do you see that moment, flying that flag, influencing the broader conversation with the queer community? I was going to say both in, like, federal roles and public institutions, but I think just as a whole, how do you feel that that movement and your advocacy is going to influence this conversation moving forward?
I hope that it just lets people know that there are people out there that are fighting and that they feel included in spaces, and that there is community. I think that a lot of people feel really isolated within the community, and just seeing something that is like so big and so overwhelming to remind them that like we are out there and we still have so much love and we are fighting is huge. Like, I got messages from a few kids that messaged me, and they said essentially, I'm from Florida, and I saw that flag, and I want to commit suicide all of the time, and like that flag reminded me that like there are other people out there, and I will get
Hmm.
there someday. And that I would get fired 1,000 times over if that saved one kid's life.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why we do things that we do. And I say about this podcast, I'm like, if one person hears an episode or listens to this episode and can identify with it and feel good about it and understand that they're not alone, I'm trying to be, and I think a lot of us are trying to be, who we wanted maybe when we were 14 or 16, that voice and that inspiration that there is something to look forward to. So again, I mean, I felt it when I saw that the flag was flown, and I love the trans community. I'm not trans, but I felt that kind of support and that positivity. So it did what I think you wanted it to do. And I
That's
have
awesome.
three more very important questions. I could go on and
Awesome.
on. I tend to be long winded, so
Amazing.
I'm like trying to zip my mouth today. What do you want listeners to take away from your story, especially those that feel unseen or afraid to speak up?
I think knowing that like there are good people out there, and that we have a whole community of people that are in support, and we do have a lot of allies that are out there that are actively engaging. And I have I've been lucky and I've gotten to like interact with a lot of them. I've gotten a lot of messages from all of them, and to just really hone in on like one of the most important messages of flying the flag, which is our flag flies higher than hate. And so every time that someone says something that's hateful, just know that there is so much more love than what they are saying. And they're doing it from a place of not having knowledge and not knowing. And it's not acceptable. And that's not your community. And you do have community.
People that feel alone, they just haven't found those people yet. They haven't had the opportunity to find their community, and it's unfortunate that there is so much hate out there, but those are not your people. And the people that are your people, I keep saying to everyone, they will find you. You know, sometimes blood family doesn't work. Sometimes your closest friends turn their back on you, but the people that get you will find you. And so holding on to that hope is really important. And
Absolutely.
I said 3 questions, but I only have 1 more. So,
Oh,
outside of your advocacy and your science work, what in life right now is bringing you joy? What makes you happy on the day to day?
yeah. What brings me joy is the same things that always bring me joy. It's like the wind whipping through the trees and being out in nature and experiencing Yosemite and remembering that like trans is natural and the outdoors doesn't give a fuck about what you are, who you are. It's just there and it's beautiful. And when I go outside, I don't have to see all of the like nasty comments. So like yeah, being by an alpine lake brings me joy. Feeling the sun on my face brings me joy. Going rock climbing brings me joy, and also just connecting with so many different people in so many different places brings me joy.
Mhm. Well, good. I hope that you continue to find all of that joy. Is there anything else you wanna say? Anything else you feel like we need to touch on that we maybe didn't?
I feel like we touched on a lot.
Just your
This is
entire
great.
life, your entire
Yeah.
life story. No need to write a book now. There's a podcast episode about it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
did cover
exactly.
a lot. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think it's very admirable what you're doing. I think it's very admirable what you did in the first place, just flying that flag. I think it's extremely unfortunate what has now unfolded. But like I said, I think that this sets us on a different path in which maybe we can affect more people and bring about more positive change. And you seem like a very positive person, and I hope that you continue to look at those good things and fuck the people who are probably leaving shitty ass comments, because I get them
Yeah.
too. They're
Yeah.
ridiculous. Sometimes I go off, but I'm trying to learn not to. But I think
Yeah.
you have, I mean, you know that you have a lot of support and an entire community behind you. And I just think it's really cool what you've done and what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So, like, I just appreciated you reaching out and just, yeah, being on this podcast and like being in support of like the whole story and just like, I don't know, all of the federal workers and everyone who's trans and just like anyone who's being silenced. Like, it's so important to have these kinds of conversations. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we can't be
yeah,
afraid to speak up, even if we do, get hate. If you're a federal worker or not, somebody that is in any type of community that's basically being shit on currently, you know, you're a voice for that. So keep going.
thanks.
I
I
love
will.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I will.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when I come up there, I'm gonna plan a trip. You'll tell me the time of year that's best, and I'll come because I need to.
I would
I
absolutely
need to
love
feel
that.
some wind through, well, my hair wouldn't move right now, but some wind through my hair, some sun on my face in nature. That would be really cool. I think that'd be neat.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll make
Perfect.
sure you're wearing sunscreen and stuff. So,
Yes. Oh, always. Must. We can't
yeah.
age. No aging allowed.
Oh, no, that would be atrocious.
Okay, well, thank you so
But
much. Yes.
did you know that gay people just get more attractive as they age?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. I
It's
only
that
learned that
maybe
like 5 years ago. Yeah.
maybe that's why they're mad at us. Maybe that's why they don't like us, because we get better with age, and unfortunately, some of them don't. Am
It's
I
so
allowed to say
true.
that? That's
I
the
think you can say
takeaway
whatever
of
you
this
want. Free
episode. True.
speech.
This is my podcast. I can say whatever the fuck I please. Gay people get hotter, the straights, not so much. All right. Well, thank you for chatting with me, sharing your story, going in depth, and creating a space where people like you and I can connect and feel seen.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Hot Air. If you want to find SJ on Instagram, you can find them. Their handle is Shannon EKJ. So Shannon SHANNONEKJ. And if you're like me and believe that this is an important topic, make sure that you share it. Send this episode to your friends. Send both social media accounts, mine and SJ's, to the people that you feel should be in the know, who might learn something from this episode. And whether those people are supportive of the trans community or not, I think it's an important conversation that we all need to have. Where does that line of free speech and standing up for what you believe in end? And who does it end for when it continues for others? I think you know what I'm trying to say here. I'll be back with another episode this coming Friday with another listener story. And if you want to submit your own listener stories, you can head on over to my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, head to the contact page, and you can drop me a line there. And again, thanks for keeping up with me. Thanks for sticking with me. Thank you to all the new listeners. This month is turning into a wild month of a lot of new ears that are hearing this content. And I'm so excited for what the future holds for Hot Air. So keep doing you, stay strong, speak up, and do not back down when someone tells you to shut it. Until next time, I'll see you next Tuesday.